Hear ye, hear ye. We are back in session. Apparently Congress was in session yesterday. But, today's episode is brought to you by Hennessey White and Harney's & Sons Winter White Earl Grey. Why is there an echo? Why? Maybe there's not. Alright, y'all. Today I bring to you your top 3 news stories, a Dear Diary moment about screaming into the void, and the next part of my interview with Daniel Delnero. 1 second there. We discovered that adding Hennessey White to white Earl Grey tea is dangerously delicious. It's a very dangerous combination. That did not lead to me spraining my ankle. That just led to something else. Whatever. Anyways, this has been a week. And yesterday was a day. Good God, was it a day. I didn't even have time to put on my makeup yesterday before a customer who created the beginning problem and then refused to take responsibility for it, and then had the audacity to come in and exclaim to me, "I'm disappointed in your customer service skills." Like, bitch, yeah, I'm still salty about it, because if I'm in the wrong, I have no problem admitting I fucked up. But this one right here, Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. Here are your top 3 things. The 45th president impeached after Capitol riot in a historic second charge. Out of Washington, according to the AP News, the 45th president was impeached by the U.S. House for a historic second time, charged with incitement of insurrection over the deadly mob siege at the U.S. Capitol in a swift and stunning collapse of his final days in office. With the Capitol secured by armed National Guard troops inside and out, the House voted 232 to 197 on Wednesday to impeach the 45th president. The proceedings moved at lightning speed, with lawmakers voting just 1 week after violent pro-45th president loyalists stormed the Capitol, egged on by the president's call for them to fight like hell against the election results. In business, Delta posted a $12 billion loss in 2020 and cautious about the first quarter outlook. Delta Airlines closed the books on a disastrous 2020 with a comparatively small fourth quarter loss, and executives expect a few more rocky months before, they hope, widespread coronavirus vaccinations and testing might salvage something of the upcoming summer travel season. Delta on Thursday reported a $755 million quarterly loss and a $12.4 billion loss for the entire year. The results likely would have been worse but for a December increase in air travel that likely contributed to another surge in virus infections as people spent more time with family and friends. And Hallmark Cards asks Holly and Marshall to return donations. Hallmark Cards said Monday that it wants U.S. Senators Josh Hawley of Missouri and Roger Marshall of Kansas to return employee campaign donations after the senators challenged Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election. The Kansas City-based greeting card company said its employees donated $7,000 to Hawley and $5,000 to Marshall during the last 2 years through the Hallmark Card Political Action Committee, the Kansas City Star reported. And those are your top 3 things. I would not do that. But, and thank you for this coat. It has not come off. I take it everywhere because it's cold, and it's cold outside, and this coat is very warm, like so warm. Like yesterday, I had to run back to the shop running errands after I'd already taken off my face and had my bonnet on, and ran out of the house thinking, I'm just going to go to the shop, pick up this thing, and then I was making stuff for dinner, and I was like, oh, I need some mustard and mayo. So I have to run into Publix. And I'm having one of those, God, this is such a Princess Margaret moments where there I am walking in God knows what, some leggings, some flip-flops, barefoot, and a bonnet on, but this coat. And even I had to wonder as I'm checking out, like, who am I? Yeah, I took the bonnet off just to have my natural hair out, and it was like, oof, good God, this is rough. I need to keep a comb in my car at all times. And addressing the top 3 things, you know it's bad when Hallmark says, give us your money, give us our money back. Speaking of money, y'all, I'm running a daily show and trying to make a feature film, which is already, that process alone is making the Duchess look like I had written here cakewalk. Oh, that reminds me. I am so sorry, Hillary, about the teleprompter bit. Wow, we were really trying to do the most. Yeah, making that feature film is making what we went through in making the Duchess look comparatively so very easy. So at the beginning of the year, I sent out a very long email to my Yellow Brick Road crew, kind of outlining a war plan for getting this beast made. Internally, I may have also had some somewhat unrealistic expectations of how the success of the Duchess would aid and could aid in helping the waltz get made. What am I talking about? I don't. I'm kind of over festivals. I'm not seeking any more money into festivals. I'm not. I mean, okay, it's not their kind of content. Awesome. I would continue to submit if I had the money, but I don't. And every time I put my finger up, I think of is her name Dominique? You know, where she's like, hold for one, I'm going to drink, and then I'm going to read the F out of you. But anyways, I digress. Go watch it. While I would love to go the route of continuing to submit to festivals, I am also a performer, and I love connecting with audiences. See This Daily Show, where I have to continue to perform because I just need to. And from what I've seen, and the content my friends make as well, is that the festivals I hold in esteem and the audiences I make my films for seem to have little overlap. So yesterday was a shit day. Started off shit, and there was no chance for it to ever be more than shit. Long story short, look, I'm processing a lot. The Duchess didn't get into South by Southwest. And, you know, I'm proud of myself because my grieving process has shortened considerably. I cried several times. But what I did notice in my sadness was that it wasn't for the Duchess. Again, I'm very confident in the product we produced. It wasn't sadness in the Duchess not getting in, but for the possible connections lost in getting to raise awareness for getting the waltz made. I mean, also over the month-long break I knew that I needed, I also lost out on a $50,000 grant and a $30,000 grant. So there's also that. That's $80,000 lost out on. Just, that was never really mine, but, you know, God laughs at men who make plans, or women in this case. Whatevs. What I also realize is that I need this show as an outlet. Look, this pandemic is tough. Being a creative is tough. Transitioning is tough. That's a lot now that I say it out loud. That's a lot going on. And there's a reason I call this show a video blog I deign to call a talk show. Because I need to scream into the void sometimes. And y'all, sometimes you are my void. I'm not going to cry, I promise. I've cried enough tears and really emotional lately, but whatevs. I can honestly say that as someone who is a very private person and holds so much close to my chest, I don't voice concerns or emotions out of wanting reaction or lifting up. Like, I debate, unless it's me screaming to the void here, I debate very strongly about posting my reactions, and yesterday was a shit kind of day type of post. And so, whatever, I don't voice concerns or emotions out of wanting reaction or lifting up. That's great, and we all naturally do that for each other. Sometimes I just need to vent, to get out the bile of whatever is fueling my dysphoria or sadness or anger or what have you, and just know someone listened. I also choke on my spit a lot, so there's that. No reaction. Honestly, it is why I do love therapy. Sometimes I just need to know that, as I'm sure is a common feeling, that someone is listening and just acknowledging my feelings. There is definitely an echo because it's those headphones right there. I hear them. Anyways, I do try and do this for my friends because it's a skill that takes practice. To listen and simply listening without offering advice or wanting to help, but to just sit with a person and their emotions. And also know that by listening, which doesn't feel very active and feels very passive, is sometimes the most helpful thing of all. Not offering solutions or we got this or it'll get better, because look, wise mind, I know this, but the 3-year-old in me wants to and needs to throw a tantrum right now in the middle of the grocery store, and I just need you to let me get it out in the middle of the canned aisle. Thank you. So, with all of that said, thank you for listening. It's half screaming into the void and then also half Dear Diary. So, Dear Diary, whatevs. Why am I saying that so much lately? Who knows? So here's the other half of the show. See, this is why I love having guests on, because I get tired of the sound of my own voice. But yes, why am I wearing this coat? I did never really get around to that. I'm wearing this coat because I forgot to leave the heat on last night, and when I walked into the studio, it was a frigid 32 degrees. So cold that one of my hair products froze, and I learned how much oil is in that product and how much water. So, with all that, the next part of my interview, very entertaining, and we kick it off by exclaiming how great Hennessey White, and look, we discover that adding Hennessey White to a white Earl Grey tea is just a dangerously delicious combination, and we spend at least the first few minutes talking about that. Love you all, and until next time. I'll start off an episode by doing like 3 articles of news, like just a brief overview, and then doing like...
This is really good.
Thank you. Okay.
What kind of tea is it?
It's a winter Earl Grey. Like, it's by Harney and Sons, and it's like a... I'll send you the link because I got off Amazon.
Okay.
But there's a place in town that sells like a white Earl Grey, which is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah. But I am really impressed how the cognac fits in there so nicely.
Yeah, I need to try and find... I know if they don't sell this, I'm sure I can find something similar.
So last night, because after I learned that they're like, yeah, we only sell it in one part of the world, in the Caribbean and France, I was like, that's rude. How am I supposed to get more of this when I drink all this by the end of the week now that it tastes so delicious?
Oh, so there has to be some type of French export control.
I guess so. I don't know what it was, but I looked up alternatives, and they're like, yeah, there's other white cognacs out there, so you just find them.
All right, I'm going to the liquor store after this.
Oh. Tell me what brand you get, because I'm really interested to try a different type.
Yeah, I'll let you know if it works.
Okay.
or if not, I'll tell you to taste clear from this.
All right, I am back with my friend, Daniel Delnero. He is an attorney, and he is also a businessman, and just really just a fascinating person. And we were just talking in the past episode about his backstory, surfing, and all that other good stuff. And we were just discussing how delicious winter Earl Grey tea mixed with pure white Hennessey is. I was really surprised at this, but I'm afraid this is my new thing.
Yeah, this might be becoming my new thing, too.
And there's something really nice about like fixing a pot of tea and the whole ceremony of it, and then adding alcohol to it. Like, yeah. There's like, this is all nice, but just need something with a little bite.
Yeah, especially cognac. Cognac has that nice smooth bite.
I've never been a cognac person until now. I think now I'm officially a cognac person, and I was looking for something alcoholic like that.
See, I started drinking cognac when I dated a Russian woman.
Tell me more.
So
I feel like I remember Rob too talking about one of your girlfriends, but
he probably made something up. There's always a kernel of truth to Rob's stories, but then they get just more and more interesting. And then there comes a point where it stops being interesting because he's kind of crossed the line to where, okay, that's just...
And then you'll give him that look, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to dial it back a lot. But
yeah.
then it starts in the same journey. I love Rob.
Right, yeah, it goes into a circle, like, it ramps up. Frankly, you know, it's like a crock of shit.
Right!
But it's so interesting and entertaining, you just want to keep going. And then it jumps the shark at some point.
Right.
And has to kind of...
What it is he's paying attention to your reaction, and you're like, I'm so into this. Tell me more. And then at a certain point, you're just like, okay, you lost me. Not happening. It's like, all right.
All right, well, here's what actually... It's like the cutaways, and when like a factual movie needs to drama it up a little bit, but then they kind of, oh, no, this is the part of the movie that wasn't real. Here's what really happened. Like, Big Short did that.
Big Short.
The movie about
the 2008 crash?
Yeah, and the kind of group that bet against Wall Street. There's one scene where they were like, okay, this isn't how it actually happened. We didn't just see it in a lobby, but the scene in the lobby was a better story. So you're like, all right, you just don't really need to correct that. But that's like a Rob story.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, you corrected too much. You should have just kept it going.
Like, you called yourself out on that one.
Right. Forgot what we were just talking about.
We were literally just talking about cognac and tea.
Oh,
so
that's right.
Clearly nothing. And then somehow we devolved into the Rob stories.
With this cognac and tea is really good. So that's a pretty important topic.
Right. And I am so impressed that I discovered it. Like, I've discovered that tea like a year ago. And yeah, it's just become my favorite. And yeah.
Yes, I do like tea. And I like getting drunk. So if you can combine
the
two
together. And also, what I like is that it makes day drinking a little bit classier because...
That's true.
I mean, here I am just... just with my afternoon wine. But I was like, you know what? This is getting a little bit bothersome because you can't really do a glass of wine at 11 in the morning.
No, 11:15 minimum.
Right. And by that point, I've already had my 2 cups of coffee. So
Right.
I need to switch from coffee or else it'll just be too much.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the edge off the coffee, and what better way than wine?
Right. Exactly. So, I did the worst thing that an actor can ever do is I held that and I did not take a sip of it. And
Well, that means you have to finish it now.
clearly, it's like bringing a gun on stage and acting. It's like, if you're going to bring a gun on stage, you better use it.
Right.
Sam. So, this past week, there was a kerfuffle, which is putting it mildly, in the Capitol. What are your takes on that?
By kerfuffle, do you mean attempted, like, white supremacist overthrow of the federal government?
Right. That's a much better way of putting it than kerfuffle. Like, that's calling it what it actually is.
Right. Obviously, I'm opposed to white supremacist overthrow of the federal government. Have you had any guests on that might be pro it?
Not yet. And I decided that I'm not going to pull an Oprah and ever have them on because, I mean, why?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, I have a lot of Republican friends. I usually vote split ticket. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm friends with current Republican members of Congress. I don't know anybody that supports that mess.
Right.
I mean, it shouldn't have been a surprise, though.
No one was surprised. It seemed like the only people that were surprised were the police at the Capitol who were like, oh my God, what are y'all doing here?
Right. I mean, you could have seen that coming a mile away. Right. I mean, you had people flying in from all over the world, or all over the country, because they thought an election was stolen and that they were going to go to I mean, it was just so utterly predictable.
It was, and yet I feel like I'm still trying to understand it because the way I found out, I was working that day at the shop and it was about to close. And then one of my favorite customers calls and we get to chatting and he's like, oh, have you seen the news? Like, something's going on in the Capitol. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? And I come home and Eddie's starting to explain it to me and then he starts crying because he realizes what the words are coming out of his mouth.
Right.
It's like, oh, I've been watching a coup all day on TV.
Right. Yeah, so I was on a Zoom call with 2 attorneys I work with, and as I do in most Zoom calls, I was half paying attention to it and had the TV on the background.
As we all are during Zoom calls.
Right. So I did remember to wear pants, though.
Yay.
So I'm pretty proud of myself for that.
Glad you're not pulling a Jeffrey Tubin.
Right. Yeah, that was bad.
That was very bad.
And that wasn't just, he had shorts on.
It's like full on masturbating.
Right. I forget what they were talking, but they were talking about some like arcane constitutionalist who, like, what got him so worked up that he had to like go for it right then. Like,
I'm wondering the same thing. It was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna have to think I'm muting y'all, and I just got to go power one out. Like, it just has to happen right now. Like,
which anybody over, I guess 50 or 60, probably just close the computer and reopen it. Like, close out the link. Don't.
Right.
You can't. The muting the microphone. They can still see you.
Right. Like, close it, disconnect all the cords,
right.
In my case, at least, with all this going on. And then, if you're going to do something, do it.
Have your OnlyFans account on your phone. Don't put it on your work computer.
There we go. These are smart things.
But, yeah, his work Zoom calls must be much more stimulating than mine.
Clearly.
But
I've never been in a Zoom call and thought, you know what, guys, hold on one second.
Right.
I have to go handle some business.
Need a 5-minute break.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, back to
revolution.
So I was on a Zoom call with people from work, and
you were not pulling a Jeffrey Tubin.
I was not pulling a Jeffrey Tubin, and nothing about what was going on the TV behind me was stimulating. But so we're literally talking, and you know, I'm half focusing on work, half focusing on the TV, and we're talking. Yeah, I can't believe the rally, because at this point it was the rally.
Right.
And so this was a long Zoom call. It's like, it looks like they just stormed the Capitol.
Oh, wow. So you're watching it live.
I was watching it live.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, yeah, there's like a dude in a Viking costume sitting in the... so then they turn on the TV. We're like, all right, we'll reconvene tonight. This is way too interesting.
Right?
So, yeah, that's how I saw it. And then one of the more disappointing things was the response. Like, it was very clear what had actually happened. Very clear. But then you still had elements that were, oh no, it was really Antifa. Well,
man,
Antifa, could there be some anarchists there? just looking for a chance to agitate. Yes, there
In
probably
any
were.
situation we have a mob like that, there's always going to be
There's always going
agitators.
to be anarchists. I mean, it was the same thing with the Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah.
There were anarchists who had nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movements, and they were some of the more aggressive people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was the same thing there. But when you have this mass of thousands of people rushing to take over the Capitol, coming from the Trump rally, dressed with their MAGA hats with like an American flag sticking out of their ass, you know who it is.
You know exactly who it is, and they thought they were doing a revolution, but then when they brought out the tear gas, they're like, oh my god, they tear gassed us!
Right.
And it's like, what did you expect them to do?
Right. Just invite you in?
It's like, well, I mean, some of them
Well, they
were
kind of
invited
did,
in.
yeah. I mean, the contrast between that and the police presence and the police tactics during the Black Lives Matter, that was very, very, I mean, it just proved kind of the underlying racist current.
Yeah.
It was a completely different response. And that's another issue where, regardless of what side of the political debate you're on, unless you're like loony, it was there to see. And just stark contrast there to see.
Stark, and yet, so I keep a few bellwether friends on Facebook who, because number one, I'm not going on Parler or whatever they call it.
Right.
Like, that's just not gonna happen. So I
It hardly even exists now. Everybody's kicking them out.
Amazon were just like, y'all can't be on our service, so y'all got to go
Yeah.
somewhere else. Can't stay here.
Apple Pay pulled it, or Apple whatever
Apple,
platform pulled
Google,
it off.
all of them, and
I don't know how technology works, but
I don't really either, but thank God there are people who do.
yeah.
But yeah, after a few bellwether friends on there, like, so this is clearly the mark of Antifa. It's like, so I've kept you on my feed long enough. This is where we're gonna draw the line.
Yeah.
If you can't see reality, we're done. And the crazy thing is, my parents are Republican and they're very conservative, and they voted very interestingly in 2016, and we just did not discuss how they voted in 2000 because it's like, I still want to talk to you, so there's a bit of a head and sand situation, but, you know, this is what's going to happen. But I don't even know where I was going at that point.
And I have friends who are like very conservative Republican activists, voted for Trump both times, who are on Facebook like, look, this is beyond the pale. This is inexcusable. It's beyond the pale. There's no excuse for it. He needs to go. And frankly, I don't. Murkowski is coming along to that view. Hell, even Mitch McConnell seems to have opened his eyes. I mean, it's to the point where it's not a political issue anymore.
It isn't. It feels like the fate of democracy type situation where it's like, where's our country going to go from this? Like, there's two roads where it's just like, we just
Right.
completely dissolve or we find some solution to all this.
Right, and you know the good thing is the Senate didn't, aside from a few really wackos, didn't go along with the craziness of overturning the election. I mean,
Yeah.
Rand Paul gave a great speech about why you couldn't do that. Lindsey Graham, I guess, wants to stay in office, so he gave a good speech. Shockingly.
Something.
Words
came out of his mouth.
Words came out of his mouth, but you know, it was actually, he did do a good job going down the history of the only other time that commission's ever been created.
Which commission?
So the thing that Ted Cruz said he was asking for was for a commission to study. He asked for 10 days for a commission to study the results and to offer an opinion. That's only been done one time before. It was 1876, and that's what ended Reconstruction, and it's what allowed for Jim Crow laws to sweep across the South.
Interesting.
Lindsey
So
Graham
interesting.
actually went through that history on the Senate floor
Okay.
and said, you know, here's what they're asking for. Yeah, they do have a president. They said the president's 1876. Well, here's what happened when they did it in 1876. Reconstruction ended. Jim Crow laws spread across the South. That's what you're using as a model?
Wow, those words came out of Lindsey Graham's mouth?
Yeah, those words came out of Lindsey Graham's mouth.
That's...
So it was like he like almost reverted to the Lindsey Graham from when John McCain was alive.
So that person still exists.
Apparently. I mean, it could have been opportunistic.
Right.
But,
well...
you know, but there were some... And this is why I say it's really something that should be beyond the pale of politics, because there were some very, very genuine speeches from very conservative members of the Senate, or senators, not members, who were drawing ideological rationales for how really just crazy this was. I mean, Mike Lee of Utah, very, very conservative, gave a principled defense on how you're just overturning the entire vision of how elections work here.
Right.
Rand Paul did the same, and for better or worse, he tells you what he's actually thinking. It might be completely loony one week, and then the next week it might be something that's actually rational, but he's going to tell you what he's really thinking.
Right.
He's not a Ted Cruz guy who's going to say whatever he thinks will,
Very
or like
opportunistic.
Josh Hawley, whatever they think is going to get them through the next midterm. But
if we're lucky, Josh Hawley will get kicked out.
yeah, that was pretty bad.
That was very bad. That was very bad.
To come in after the attempted coup and say, yep, at least Kelly Loeffler came in and said, okay, I can no longer support this madness.
I love the contrast between, like, Tuesday night, like, we're gonna win this, whatever. It's like,
right.
I'm done, y'all. I'm out. Like,
right, this is enough.
I had to hide.
Right.
I'm going back to my $1 million house and not deal with this.
Right, I'm going back to Buckhead. See you idiots
I
later.
was fine, and now I'm gonna go back to being fine. Yeah, it's still
It's really good cognac.
Thank you. Like, I can't take credit for it, but my parents turned me on a Hennessey White. Of all people, they don't even drink. My dad and my aunt. My aunt's a big cruiser. Like, she's a travel agent, and she's always like...
Well, so what are they doing now where there's, like, no cruises?
Well, number one, my aunt has been quarantined for the past year or whatever, because, like, she's got health issues, so, like...
Gotcha.
So, yeah, she's been doing nothing travel-wise. Just waiting for the vaccine so she can go back to cruising and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that industry.
Yeah.
Because even, like, without COVID, I mean, look what happened on the cruise ships everybody got. Well, same thing will happen with the flu. I'm not going on a cruise.
Number one, I hate cruises because, as we already discussed, deep water. Absolutely terrifying. But, yeah, so my friend had an interesting story from last year where, like, he's a performer on cruise ships. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he says they were able to get off literally, like, hours before they're like, y'all gotta stay on this ship. Like, and he was able to get back to the country and everything. But it's just, like, it started coming in on the cruise ships first, and we were like, we don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, that would have been miserable to be quarantined on a cruise ship.
God.
I mean, I don't like cruises just because I don't like... when I'm on vacation, I don't want to be on a schedule.
Yes,
I mean,
thank you.
Like, okay, you have to be back on the boat by 5 p.m. or we're going to leave without you. That's like being in summer camp when you're a kid, not on an adult vacation. I want to get drunk on the beach.
Thank you.
I don't want to have to look at my watch while I'm getting drunk on the beach.
And worry about, like, oh, I got to stop drinking at this time.
Right.
Like, that's what... If I wanted to do that, I'd be at home, like, at a bar and trying to decide, like, all right, I need to save 2 hours so I can drive home. Like,
right.
I don't know. I agree with you 100% with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this takes us into a very good next topic, and I'm going to break us there. So, you'll have to stay tuned for the very next episode, which I believe will follow... I don't know what day this is airing, so I'm getting drunk. Oh, there we are. All right.